So over the past couple of videos, I've had a very common comment talking about the open world. Having the open world become useless is devastating. That was a big selling point for Diablo 4 to make it different than other ARPGs. So once again, we are stuck to doing nightmare dungeons, which are basically greater rifts from Diablo 3. They need to integrate the open world so we don't feel exhausted from dungeon grinding. Some of the areas are so vibrant and look so good. There's literally no reason to be in those open world areas unless you're on campaign for whatever reason or doing random side quests. You're forced to grind dungeons if you want to level and get decent loot, specifically nightmare dungeons, right? What happened? Why is this the case? What actually happened with this game? Well, they did an absolutely brutal change for the open world. Before I dive into that, I will be playing the Path of Exile season starter basically for the first time because I haven't really dove into Path of Exile tonight on stream. So if you want to check that out, that'll be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll put a link to it. And also, I have a link to a new YouTube channel because I've seen a lot of people interested in checking out more content for Starfield, which is going to be a new game upcoming. It looks absolutely amazing. So check that out as well. I would greatly appreciate it if you guys sub to that one. What is the change that we're talking about, though? The open world change completely gutted any sort of viability for running dungeons, for running open world activities, except for Helltide zones, or any even side quests potentially that might have been somewhat useful in the game. And that is the level scaling that they dropped in, which is kind of ironic because, or I guess on the contrary to a lot of the changes that people advocated for, because they didn't want level scaling in some areas, which is something that that a lot of people asked for. And the devs did the exact opposite, which is make the level scaling even more hardcore and even worse. Which is hilarious. So as you're walking around the open world, what you'll notice is all the monsters now have essentially a level cap 5 levels beneath you, assuming you're in world tier 3 or world tier 4. The open world is still useful from 1 to 50. But because they're 5 levels beneath you, it's not like, oh, they're 5 levels beneath you, so we're not getting that much XP because they're not higher level. It's that we're actively getting our experience reduced by 50% from these open world monsters, as well as dungeons. So basically, they're completely worthless. There's literally no reason to run around and kill monsters out here if you're looking for XP. And in conjunction with that, the loot is pretty mediocre. So there's not really a good reason to run open world anything except for, again, Helltide zones, which are useful for the uses of themed roses and potentially target farming your specific unique or legendary item, right? And this has kind of destroyed one of the unique factors about Diablo 4. Now, whether or not you think it's a good thing that the open world exists, it did exist, and it was one of the main selling points of Diablo 4. One of the things that they didn't want to do was, give you essentially options to instant teleport initially because they wanted you to run through the open world, but we got the instant teleport anyways, right? So this whole map, you don't even travel around because you just teleport to the next nightmare dungeons. And even if you are traveling around it for maybe your altars for your first claim, or maybe you're finishing some renown or something like that, well, you're not really getting anything. And in fact, it completely destroys any sort of option for you to progress your character if you don't do it at the right time. So this video serves as both a warning, but also an explanation of why this change is so miserable for a lot of people. As soon as you reach level 76, everything that you could have done in the open world now becomes basically trash. So if you're speed farming, or if you're leveling, or even if you're just grinding out renown, and maybe you repeated a couple dungeons, or maybe you wanted to do some nightmare dungeons just for fun, and then you wanted to jump back in the open world and finish off some stuff, well, guess what? You should have done that earlier because now you're getting significantly less experience, even in world tier 3, by the way. So if you're in that middling point where you're not at world tier 4, you're like, well, this won't affect me because I'm in world tier 3. If you're level 56 and in world tier 3, it also affects you because now you have the monsters scaling down below you. So they took level scaling and they knew everyone felt, oh, I'm feeling like I'm getting weaker every level. And instead of potentially giving us some options to feel stronger, or maybe even removing level scaling so we can target certain areas, right? And at least make some of the open world useful. They basically decided, you know what? We're going to make every area in the game, even the ones that had a minimum level, the same level besides strongholds, but even those have a level cap at world tier 4 and such. And then we're going to make it so that when you reach a certain level, these things don't give you any more experience, essentially, right? We're talking like previous greatest farming methods, like Champion's Demise, for example. This used to be exceptionally good. And even with the buffs to all the various different things and speed farming and like the barber, this is like 11 million XP per hour in a dedicated group, which is atrocious. That's even worse than running solo nightmare dungeons, which you can get like 26 million XP per hour. Now, you might say, oh, well, I don't care about XP per hour. Like, why does that matter to me? Well, the thing that matters is a lot of people just run around the map and want to do these activities. They want to play these dungeons. They don't want to get punished for it. But it's not that you're not getting the most efficient route. It's that you're actively getting punished for doing these things because of the massive reductions across the board when you're participating in these activities, which is really, really sad. Again, it's not the, oh, everything needs to be the best meta strategy. Everyone knows that repeating nightmare dungeons are going to be the best way. But even like the seasonal tunnels, right? The seasonal tunnels aren't great. The XP is oftentimes reduced as well. And the regular dungeons are significantly reduced. So there really isn't any alternative way to level without being 80 to 90% worse than doing it in nightmare dungeons. If you have a dedicated group for a nightmare dungeon farm, you could oftentimes get like 38 to, even with the buffs, potentially 42 million, 43 million XP per hour, which is more than 4 times a dedicated group in open world activities. And if you're solo, I mean, those are going to be even less. Like you might expect like 3 to 4 million XP per hour versus, as I said, 28 million or so. So there is a massive difference. And it's, I think, one of the most, I guess you say, unfun changes that they made going into season 1. I initially looked at it and I was like, that's not that bad. Early game. The problem is, as soon as you reach world tier 3, you start to feel the effects, and it really makes the end game even more repetitive than it was before, which is kind of awkward. And it really removes a lot of potentially the uniqueness that a lot of people felt. This may not even matter to some of you. But what I will say is, even if it doesn't matter and you care, like, oh, I like running nightmare dungeons anyways, well, a lot of the progression mechanics, like the renown system, as I mentioned, are needing you to run around in the open world to some degree. So if you plan on doing that, do it before you reach level 76 if you're in world tier 4, and do it before you reach level 56 in world tier 3, so you actually get the most value. So hopefully that helps. And if you guys want to check out the other channels, I'll have a link down below, as well as a link to the stream. Come check me out at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to have some fun with Path of Exile. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.